I love this manga so much, I decided to make my own cipher for us to solve together. So, keep on watching the video to find out what this hidden message means. I've read a lot of manga in the past couple of years, and it wasn't necessarily an over a long period of time sort of thing. I have this really bad tendency of binging a manga if it even slightly grabs my attention. For example, in 4 days I read the entirety of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Steel Ball Run. The only reason it took so long was because my eyes began to hurt at the 3 to 4 hour mark. I have especially spent a long time reading from the Jump catalog. I even own a subscription to Viz, the official publisher for Shonen Jump. And out of everything I've read, nothing hits quite as hard as Cipher Academy. Cipher Academy is written by Niso Isin, and the art is by Yujin Iwasaki. God, I hope I said those right. Please don't crucify me. If you have ever watched the Monogatari series, then this name should sound familiar. He wrote the Monogatari series, Zaragoto series, Katanagatari series, and much more. So yes, you can thank this man for writing in that questionable toothbrush scene. I've never seen any of these works in their entirety, nor have I read them, so I can't give an accurate account whether or not these works are of high quality. But what I can say is that he's gained an enormous amount of experience from writing over a dozen stories. He's been refining his craft to near excellency. And with only providing spoilers for the first chapter of this manga, I will try to demonstrate that excellency in full. So, let's get to solving our first cipher now, shall we? Chapter 1 of Cipher Academy starts with an introduction to a cipher, a clever way of keeping the audience invested in the story from the very start. Even if the level of difficulty is beyond the average viewer's capabilities, it still carries along the reader's curiosity throughout the manga's slow opening. The next shot gives a 2-page spread conveying the manga's premise. During World War II, the United States selected women all over the country in order to form a cryptanalysis unit. This unit was tasked with analyzing classified communications, which resulted in today's National Security Agency. This resulted in the creation of Cipher Academy years later, in preparation for the next Great War. The cover art for Chapter 1 shows the 3 main characters of the manga, including the comically designed Cipher Academy. I mean, look at it! It's a giant lock surrounded by random metal keys shaped like towers. It's what I love about anime and manga alike. Art so straightforward and exaggerated, it's impossible to find this design in any other media to date. Other than maybe Bollywood, that place goes wild. The manga shoots back to only a few hours prior, showing how the main character was first introduced to his life of code breaking. The first panel shows a woman very similar in design to that of a military leader. We then learn that the school is, in fact, treated like a military school. Students are tasked with completing missions in forms of codes. For example, the first code introduced to the protagonist is a self-introduction crossword. The difficulty level is rated as 2 stars. This is mentioned later in the manga, but the way difficulty is rated is like this. 1 star, you can solve it by looking at it. 2 stars, you can solve it by thinking about it. 3 stars, you can solve it by thinking about it hard. 4 stars, you can't solve it if you don't think about it. 5 stars, you can't solve it unless you think about it hard. Hey, I didn't make up these stars things, it's kind of confusing, but just stay with me. Let me throw you a problem from a later part in the manga in order to show how the system works. In Chapter 5, the protagonist is put into handcuffs. He's then shown 5 keys. Only one of the 5 keys is the correct key to open the locked handcuffs. So, which one of these keys do you believe will unlock the handcuffs? I'll give you a few minutes to figure it out. Well, a couple seconds. If you chose key B, then you are correct. You see, a person with a good eye will see that the keys are assorted in a certain way. But a person with a better eye will pull their view back and see the correct response doesn't rely on the direction each key is pointing. Keys A, C, D, and E are all the exact same key. They are simply spaced out in a way that makes it more difficult for the eye to tell. For example, no two exact keys are facing the same direction and are beside one another, other than key B and C, making it appear as though since B and C don't match, that the other keys don't match as well. This is more of a puzzle for the eye than it is for the person. With that as our basis, let's move back to the start of the manga. We see that the lady sitting behind our protagonist is the first to finish the assignment. She's not only beautiful, as stated by our protagonist, but also exudes a "I am the villain of this manga" nature. Skipping forward a bit, and we find that the protagonist is sitting alone in the library, still working on the same crossword puzzle. Suddenly, a woman bursts into the room asking the protagonist to hide her. Shortly after the encounter, in comes a trio of women led by the evil-looking girl. If you look carefully, you can see the scientist's lab coat behind the protagonist, a nice little detail they added. We then have the protagonist say the woman's name. Her name is Toshusai. But let me pause this real quick. If you read any of the previous pages, you will see that they never call her by name. In fact, the very first time the name has ever been presented to the reader was when the protagonist spoke it. Toshusai notices this and calls him out for it, only for one of Toshusai's friends to intervene. After insulting the protagonist's ability to solve a simple problem, they leave. The protagonist then introduces himself to the strange girl. His name is Irohazaka, and the scientist's name is Kogore Horagatoge. As a thank you, Kogoe offers to complete the assignment for him, but he refuses, so instead of completing the assignment, she hands him a pair of snazzy glasses. Iroha asks why she chose this school, so she says, "I'm here because you can become a hero without resorting to violence." Ironically enough, she makes a peace sign while saying this with a globe encapsulating her entire hand. I'm pretty sure I learned this one in class. She's got the whole world in her hands. She got the whole world in her hands. She explains this reasoning further. By learning code breaking, you can win wars without ever needing to fight, which in of itself is an interesting take. Let's have a short history lesson. During World War II, there was an infamous code called the WINS code. It was a code sent out in the middle of the daily Japanese language shortwaves news broadcast. It specified whether or not Japanese relations was in danger. This code split between each of the large military powers and, debatably, warned of the Pearl Harbor bombings. My question to you is, what could have been done differently to prevent this event from happening? If the US knew of this event prior, what could they have done differently to prevent a war from breaking out? My answer to you is nothing. If they intercept the planes, a war would break out for the attempted attack. If they evacuate the area, a war would still have broken out. If they even told Japan that they knew what was going to happen, Japan would simply fall into a second or third attempt in which they attacked a different spot, or possibly requested help from another nation. A code breaker's job is twofold. It is not to stop wars from happening. It's not even their job to end the war. It's their job to either win the war or stall it. Communication is by far the most important tool used in all of warfare. If, let's say, you are playing chess and the person across from you can read your mind, would you ever move your first piece? The answer is no. Because no matter where you move, the enemy will be able to counter it. It's an infinite stalemate. Within this fine line, I believe we can see where Kogoe's intentions lie. She doesn't want to simply end the fighting. She wants to win, which inevitably results in a losing side. Take what you will with this information. I may or may not be looking into this line deeper than necessary, but I believe the way the things are worded in any form of media is important to portraying the character's personality, especially when written by someone with years of experience. Oroha puts on the glasses only for the paper to begin glowing out of nowhere. They then cut to the finished crossword resting on the wall with the rest of them. Suddenly, Toshusai steals the paper from the wall and begins looking over it. She then asks Oroha to meet her on the roof. It then cuts to a very similar panel we saw at the start of the manga. One of the women begins explaining Toshusai's status, which includes being the heiress to a massive military manufacturer. The woman explains it's best to be friends with Toshusai than enemies. Toshusai then interrogates him on how someone as stupid as him could have possibly completed the crossword puzzle. Oroha snaps back with a, "My imaginary friend helped me do it, I swear." Toshusai then wagers a bet. If Oroha is lying, he will have to be her manservant for 3 years. A request straight out of an ecchi anime. With one rip of a paper, she writes down a 4-star level cryptogram. The problem? Who among them does the cryptogram refer to? So, with his hair tied back and his new snazzy glasses on, he begins his ice-cold reading. As you might have expected, the glasses' purpose aren't just to make him look snazzy. They are smart glasses. They solve the cipher for the user. Well, no. They don't necessarily solve it. They simply pick out oddities or key points in a cipher that holds the most significance. For example, in the cipher given to Oroha, it highlights the kanji present in the message handed to him. But wait. Instead of deciphering this message and spoiling a really cool puzzle, how about I give you a cipher of my own creation? This cipher follows a similar rule set as the one in the manga, but tailored towards a more American audience. If I were to rate my cipher, I believe it is a 5-star rather than a 4-star, be it from my own incompetence of what makes a good cipher good. Let's put on our snazzy specs and begin. Which of us does this cipher refer to? Their cipher reads as follows. Tri-rule. A rule of thirds is necessary. A rule of thirds is just. A rule of thirds applied across all people, can't be undone or coerced. Call to all citizens, dawning the followers' hearts. Great is the man helping the nation grow. I know not of this passion. I know not of this growth. I know not of this nation. I know not of this birth. Knowledge born in the youth, knowledge gained through its use. Lost is the man without it. Men available loving without many. Men birthed just to worship another's might. Many have fallen, many have died. Many lay barren of the newborn side. Never have they faltered, newer born twice. Newer than the universe, born second died thrice. Never again do they falter, night lost to time. Never again touch daytime under the rule that never strikes twice. O countrymen, O citizens, O nation lost with the people in mind, rise to meet the call, sons and daughters, saviors of our time. Under villains and under crime, my vanity knows no end, my wishfulness knows no kind. Without you, without people, without my citizens of want and desire, off goes the 21st, 33rd, and 30th. The tri-rule died 3 times. Now, if anyone is able to solve this, which I believe that no one will, since, once again, I'm new at cryptograms, I'm new at ciphers, and this one's I tried making as hard as possible since I'm going to be walking it through with you. If anyone's able to solve this, come to my Discord and I'll give you high fives, a big old cookie. I'll give you all that. Let's begin deciphering it. The first thing you would notice is the improper capitalization found throughout the writing. If you were to take every improper capitalization and order them, it would look like this. Now that doesn't mean much, so let's take every capitalized letter. The writing refers to a nation quite often, so that must be a portion of the problem. If we were to number each of the capitalized letters, we would find that there are 50 letters. This 50 letters would also align with the number of states in the United States. Alright, so we are on the right track. So let's look at the writing once more. The title of the writing is called Tri-Rule, so there is a great importance shown to both the number 3 and a rule. If we think about a rule that all 50 states have to follow, then we would fall upon the Constitution. Now that we have a possible link to what the rule is referring to, let's look at the last portion of the cipher. These last 2 sentences have no word capitalized in it, so it should be clear that these are for helping to solve the cipher. Let's take the numbers 21, 33, and 30. If we were to look back at the states, we would find that 21 is Massachusetts, 33 is North Carolina, and 30 is New Jersey. All 3 of these states were present during the creation of the Constitution. Now that we have these 3 important states, let's investigate the final sentence in our cipher. The sentence reads, "The tri-rule died 3 times." Times could be a form of a multiplication, so if we do that to our previous numbers provided, we get this. Now that doesn't really help us, so instead of multiplication, how about we try division? When we divide, we get 3 clean numbers, 7, 11, and 10. If we look at those 3 sentences, then we don't get much of importance, even if we look at the capitalized letters. This is the tri-rule though, so instead of looking at the first word of each sentence, let's look at the second and third word. Take sentence 7 for example. The second word is born and the third word is in. If we were to convert the first letters of these 2 words into numbers, then we would get 2 and 9. Now, how would this connect to the Constitution? Let's take a look. If we break down which states were present during the creation of the Constitution, we get this. Now, we are going to only focus on Massachusetts, since that state is number 21, which is also the number we divided to get sentence 7. If we list each person present in the signing of the Constitution that is a representative from Massachusetts, we get this. This is when trial and error would come in until we were able to uncover a proper word that also took into account the numbers 2 and 9. If we list each person in order, focusing on the first letters of their names, then we get this order. We would then take 2 as representing the person in this order we are referring to. Then we would take 9 as representing the letter in the person's name that we would be using to decode this cipher. If we were to do this with sentence 11 and sentence 10, we would then discover who this cipher was referring to. And ultimately, we would learn the cipher was in fact referring to you, the reader, all along. After discovering the answer to the cipher, the 3 women begin to leave. That's when, out of seemingly nowhere, Oruha's glasses begin to talk. They say something along the lines of, "Since I won, doesn't that make you my servant?" And in turn, without questioning it, Choshusai begins to act the role. The women finally leave after this, and the manga cuts to Kogoe sitting in a room filled with cameras and what can only be described as the stickiest keyboards known to man. They then introduce the goal of the entire manga. A race to mine the 50 million morgue of cryptocurrency lying dormant in the Cipher Academy. So, that's the premise, and every chapter of this manga builds on that. Nisio Isin has been working with manga for years, and it shows in this. Every chapter leaves on a cliffhanger that builds on either Oruha's character development, or it builds on the mysterious Cipher Academy itself. I know this manga is still in its infancy, but I have yet to read a filler episode. Every page provided has been used to move the plot forward in what at least feels like a major way. Let's take a minute to discuss the artist Yuji Iwasaki. He's worked on a few one-shots like Kazukago Mountain or Miemi no Omito, but nothing of major importance. This is his first non-one-shot work. His art is at the very least fun with very JoJo-esque poses for character introductions. Take this panel for instance. All Iroha is doing is looking at a piece of paper with glasses on, but Iwasaki refined this into a battle-like stance. Since that is their form of combat in the manga, he drew it as such. These poses are so clean too, I mean, come on! I will now drop a small spoiler for a later plot development. But if I've already convinced you to read the manga, then please like, comment, and subscribe on your way out. It is discovered later in the manga that these glasses are not only to help solve ciphers, but also to teach the user how to solve ciphers without them. It shows the user patterns in which, once they realize those patterns exist, they can use the knowledge in the future to decipher other hidden messages. This manga can be shown in that same light. Its purpose isn't just to show you these fun puzzles that exist in the real world, but it also accustoms your mind to looking outside of the box in order to solve these puzzles on your own. That's what makes this manga so great. It isn't just fun to read, but it also becomes a hidden lesson for your brain, a sort of cipher-tinted glasses as you will. But that's all for me. I've done everything in my power to get you to read this manga. Like, comment, subscribe, and as always, Johnny!